Mrs. Doubtfire gave the world laughter, chaos, and one of the most unforgettable performances Robin Williams ever created. But behind the warmth and comedy, time quietly changed the lives behind those familiar faces in ways no fan could have imagined. Some stars found new success, others disappeared from the spotlight, and some stories ended with heartbreaking loss. More than 30 years later, we return to Mrs. Doubtfire to uncover where the cast is now in 2026, and the incredible truth behind what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. Frank Hillard, the moment he carefully adjusts Mrs. Doubtfire's wig under harsh studio lights while helping Daniel keep his impossible secret alive, feels like someone quietly protecting the fragile line between comedy and heartbreak in Mrs. Doubtfire. At the center of that unforgettable warmth was Harvey Fierstein. Born Harvey Forbes Fierstein on June 6, 1952, in Brooklyn, New York, he was 41 when the film was released, bringing authenticity, wit, and emotional depth to the role during one of the strongest periods of his career. He had already transformed American theater through Torch Song Trilogy, winning Tony Awards while becoming one of the first openly gay playwrights and actors to achieve major mainstream success. Yet his journey carried years of rejection, isolation, and battles against an industry uncomfortable with voices that refused to hide. Away from fame, he devoted much of his life to advocacy, writing, and preserving LGBTQ representation in entertainment. In 2026, at 73, he remains a presence that proved the loudest laughter in a story often comes from people who understand loneliness most deeply. Gloria Cheney, she narrows her eyes across the television studio with complete disapproval while chaos quietly erupts around her. Feels like someone trying desperately to maintain order in a world growing stranger by the second in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face behind that unforgettable presence was Polly Holliday. Born Polly Dean Holliday on July 2, 1937, in Jasper, Alabama, she was 56 when the film was released, bringing commanding comedic timing and emotional realism to the role. Before Mrs. Doubtfire, she had already become a television icon through Alice, where her unforgettable performance as Flo turned "Kiss My Grits" into part of American pop culture. Away from Hollywood glamour, her life reflected deep dedication to theater and teaching, while gradually stepping back from the spotlight after decades in entertainment. She died on September 9, 2025 from pneumonia, at 88, leaving behind a presence that understood strength on screen often carried a quiet loneliness underneath. Lydia Hillard, she stares silently across the dinner table after sensing something painfully wrong beneath her parents' forced smiles. Feels like a child realizing too early that families can begin falling apart long before anyone finally admits it in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face carrying all that quiet emotional weight was Lisa Yacoub. Born on December 27, 1978, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, she was only 14 when the film was released, bringing surprising maturity and vulnerability to the role. She became a familiar face through family films and television during the 1990s. Yet one of the defining turns in her life came when anxiety and struggles with the pressures of fame pushed her toward reinvention, eventually leaving acting behind to focus on writing, yoga, and mental health advocacy. Now, at 47, Lisa Yacoub remains a reminder that some child performances endure because they captured emotions audiences were still learning how to say out loud themselves. Chris Hillard, he bursts into laughter beside Mrs. Doubtfire without realizing the father he misses is standing right in front of him, captures the fragile innocence of a child still believing family problems can somehow be fixed if everyone just stays together long enough in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face behind that unforgettable warmth was Matthew Lawrence. Born Matthew William Lawrence on February 11, 1980, in Abington Township, Pennsylvania, he was 13 when the film was released, becoming one of the defining child actors of 1990s family entertainment. Before audiences followed him into Boy Meets World, he had already built a career alongside his brothers through television, comedy, and family films. His life later reflected the challenges of growing up in public while navigating changing fame, relationships, and the difficult transition from child star to adult performer. Now 46 in 2026, Matthew Lawrence remains a presence that reminds audiences how childhood laughter can sometimes hide emotions too complicated for kids to fully understand. Jonathan Lundy, the moment he watches Daniel's chaotic audition unravel with tired patience and quiet curiosity, feels like a man who has spent decades inside the entertainment industry learning how easily talent and desperation can exist in the same room in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face carrying all that grounded humanity was Robert Prosky. Born Robert Joseph Porzyksek on December 13, 1930, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he was 62 when the film was released, bringing warmth and authenticity shaped by decades of acclaimed stage work. Long before audiences remembered him from broadcast news and countless memorable character roles, he had already become one of theater's most respected performers through years with Washington's Arena Stage. Away from Hollywood glamour, his life reflected devotion to craft and family more than celebrity culture itself. He passed away on December 8, 2008, at 77 due to cardiac surgery, leaving behind a presence that made even authority figures feel deeply human instead of distant. Mrs. Sellner, the moment she slowly narrows her eyes while inspecting Mrs. Doubtfire with polite suspicion, feels like someone who has spent a lifetime learning how easily appearances can hide uncomfortable truths in Mrs. Doubtfire. Beneath the stern professionalism and careful manners, there is loneliness there too, as if routine and responsibility have quietly replaced surprise or joy long ago. The face behind that unforgettable tension was Anne Haney. Born on March 4, 1934, in Memphis, Tennessee, she was 59 when the film was released, bringing sharp comedic timing and grounded realism to one of the movie's most memorable supporting performances. She had already built a respected late-blooming career through television and film after years spent raising a family. That reinvention became one of the defining turns of her life, proving success does not always arrive on schedule. Away from celebrity culture, she remained devoted to craft over fame until her sudden passing from heart failure on May 26, 2001, at 67. She left behind a presence that made ordinary authority figures feel surprisingly human, observant, and quietly unforgettable. Miranda Hillard, she sits alone in the quiet aftermath of another argument, holding back tears while trying to stay strong for her children. Feels like someone forced to choose between protecting her family and protecting herself in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face carrying all that emotional gravity was Sally Field. Born Sally Margaret Field on November 6, 1946, in Pasadena, California, she was 46 when the film was released, bringing extraordinary warmth and realism to a role that could easily have been misunderstood. Before Mrs. Doubtfire, she had already become one of Hollywood's most respected performers through Norma Rae, earning an Academy Award for portraying women whose strength always carried vulnerability underneath. Away from the spotlight, her life reflected difficult personal battles, including years overcoming childhood trauma and learning to reclaim her voice both on and off screen. Today, at 79, Sally Field remains a presence that understood the strongest people in a family are often the ones quietly carrying the most pain. Jack, the moment he casually tosses out another brutally honest remark while chaos unfolds around him, feels like someone who learned long ago that humor can cut through awkwardness faster than pretending everything is fine in Mrs. Doubtfire. Beneath the sharp wit and flamboyant confidence, there is vulnerability there too, as if honesty became his defense against ever having to hide who he truly is. The face behind that fearless energy was Scott Capurro. Born Scott Capurro on December 10, 1962, in San Francisco, California, he was 30 when the film was released, bringing quick improvisational humor and authenticity to the role. Before becoming a familiar face in alternative comedy circles, he built his reputation through fearless stand-up performances that challenged social norms and openly embraced LGBTQ identity during an era when mainstream entertainment was far less accepting. His life reflected persistence, controversy, and a refusal to soften his voice simply to fit expectations. Currently, at 63, Scott Capurro remains a presence that understood comedy becomes most powerful when it stops apologizing for telling the truth. Justin Gregory, he smiles politely across the dinner table while tension quietly builds beneath the surface. Feels like a man trying to step carefully into a family already carrying emotional cracks long before he arrived in Mrs. Doubtfire. Beneath the polished charm, financial success, and calm confidence, there is discomfort there too, as if he senses he is being judged for simply representing stability in the middle of someone else's heartbreak. The face behind that quietly complicated presence was Martin Mull. Born Martin Eugene Mull on August 18, 1943, in Chicago, Illinois, he was 50 when the film was released, bringing subtle wit and understated humanity to a role that could easily have become a caricature. Before Mrs. Doubtfire, he had already built a cult legacy through sharp satirical comedy and television classics like Fernwood Tonight. His life reflected artistic reinvention through music, painting, and comedy rather than chasing celebrity attention. He passed away on June 27, 2024, at 80, leaving behind a presence that understood the most interesting people on screen are rarely entirely right or entirely wrong. Female employee. The moment she pauses mid-conversation and exchanges an awkward glance as Daniel's carefully constructed world begins slipping out of control, captures the quiet tension of ordinary people suddenly pulled into someone else's emotional unraveling in Mrs. Doubtfire. Beneath the professionalism and polite composure, there is curiosity there too, as if she senses far more heartbreak behind the chaos than anyone is openly willing to admit. The face behind that subtle realism was Karen Khan. Born on October 31, 1957, she was 35 when the film was released, bringing grounded authenticity to even a brief supporting appearance. Her career reflected the path of many dependable character performers who quietly helped shape the emotional texture of beloved films and television throughout the 1980s and 1990s. After, her life followed a far more private course outside the constant noise of celebrity culture. As of now, at 68, Karen Khan remains a reminder that even the smallest roles in emotionally resonant films often helped make those cinematic worlds feel unexpectedly real and human. Stuart Dunmire. He sits calmly at the restaurant table while tension and jealousy quietly swirl around him. Feels like a man stepping into someone else's broken family without fully realizing how much emotional wreckage still lingers beneath the surface in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face carrying all that smooth restraint was Pierce Brosnan. Born Pierce Brendan Brosnan on May 16, 1953, in Drogheda, Ireland. He was 40 when the film was released, bringing warmth and subtle humanity to a role audiences initially loved to resent. Before redefining global stardom as GoldenEye-era James Bond, he had already survived devastating personal tragedy after losing his first wife Cassandra Harris to cancer, a loss that deeply reshaped his outlook on life and family. Later years reflected devotion to his children, painting, and a quieter emotional maturity often hidden behind movie star elegance. Nowadays, at 73, Pierce Brosnan remains a presence that understood grace on screen often comes from people who have already lived through heartbreak off it. Daniel Hillard. He stands alone in front of the mirror applying Mrs. Doubtfire's makeup with trembling hands and desperate hope in his eyes. Feels like a father willing to erase his own identity just to remain close to the children he cannot bear losing in Mrs. Doubtfire. At the center of that unforgettable humanity was Robin Williams. Born Robin McLaurin Williams on July 21, 1951, in Chicago, Illinois, he was 42 when the film was released, delivering one of the defining performances of his extraordinary career after already transforming comedy and drama through films like Dead Poets Society. Yet behind the brilliance, his life carried painful struggles with addiction, depression, and the devastating effects of Lewy body disease later discovered after his death. Away from Hollywood, he remained deeply devoted to family and to making people feel less alone through laughter. Sadly, he passed away on August 11, 2014, at 63, leaving behind a presence that taught generations how closely joy and sadness can sometimes live inside the very same smile. Head chef. He storms through the restaurant kitchen barking orders while absolute panic erupts behind the scenes. Feels like a man holding together controlled chaos by sheer force of exhaustion and discipline in Mrs. Doubtfire. The face carrying all that grounded tension was Paul Guilfoyle. Born Paul Anthony Guilfoyle on April 28, 1949, in Boston, Massachusetts, he was 44 when the film was released, bringing gritty realism to even a small supporting role. Before millions recognized him as Captain Brass on CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, he had already built a respected career portraying intelligent, world-weary men across crime dramas and independent films. Away from Hollywood spectacle, his life reflected decades of disciplined character work rooted in theater and craft rather than celebrity attention. Nowadays, at 77, Paul Guilfoyle remains a presence that understood some of the most believable people on screen are the ones already carrying stress before the story even begins. Natalie Hillard. The moment she wraps her arms around Mrs. Doubtfire with complete trust and innocent affection, feels like a child desperately holding onto the warmth of a family she senses is quietly slipping apart in Mrs. Doubtfire. Beneath the playful laughter and wide-eyed sweetness, there is sadness there too, as if children often understand heartbreak long before adults realize they do. The face behind that unforgettable innocence was Mara Wilson. Born on July 24, 1987, in Burbank, California, she was only 6 when the film was released, instantly becoming one of the most beloved child actors of the 1990s. Before audiences followed her into Matilda, she had already shown a rare emotional authenticity that made childhood on screen feel genuine rather than performed. Yet behind the fame, her life carried devastating personal loss after the death of her mother from breast cancer during her teenage years, an experience that eventually pushed her away from Hollywood and toward writing and self-reflection. At present, at 38, Mara Wilson remains a reminder that some child performances stay with audiences forever because they captured emotions far older than the actors themselves. Thank you for revisiting the unforgettable world of Mrs. Doubtfire with us. Though the years have passed, the laughter, heart, and memories still remain timeless. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and share your favorite moments from the film below.